We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace.
The Department of Peace bill was tabled a couple of weeks ago now, and what it would do is create at the federal government level a full department and a cabinet level position for a Minister of Peace and a Department of Peace, and it would put that person at the center of government at the cabinet table. It's based on an idea that's been developed by the Department of Peace Initiative, a Canadian NGO that has had a very highly developed model bill for a number of years.
Now, the bill is a culmination of a long, long process that really begins with our foundation in 2003. We and the Ottawa chapter are the founding chapters of the Department of Peace Initiative, and now we have 12 chapters across many major cities, most major cities in Canada.
And so the bill that I tabled is based on their work. And it parallels a lot of work that's being done around the world. For instance, in the United States, Congressperson Dennis Kucinich has had a similar bill on the order paper of the House of Representatives for a number of years now. Costa Rica just recently established a full Department of Peace and Justice in their government structure. Nepal and the Solomon Islands also have departments of peace in their government structure.
So when Nepal and Costa Rica have declared ministers of peace, this enhances the opportunity in Canada. Ultimately, this has to culminate in some form of legislation. And so we have created, our people actually wrote that bill to a large extent, and it's modeled on a similar bill in the United States in the Congress there, and was improved by professional people who write these things in Ottawa, along with the two members who co-signed the bill.
When we talk to people about the Department of Peace, their eyes kind of just glaze over thinking, oh yeah, maybe it's just going to be another name for the Department of Defense. Can you tell us a little bit more about what's in the bill?
Well, it doesn't replace the Department of Defense, and it doesn't foresee replacing the Department of Defense. What it does is would establish a cabinet level position that consolidates a lot of peacekeeping work, the development of Canadian peacekeepers, election monitors, conflict mediators. It would do peace education and professional training for those folks. It would coordinate a Canadian peace service and a youth service similar to that Canadian peace service. It would coordinate efforts around disarmament, for instance. So what it would do is it would collect all of those things that right now are kind of on the corner of other cabinet ministers' desks that are sort of smaller pieces of other departments, and make it a full-fledged department and give one person responsibility for advocating for those issues. And I think it's a significant change. I know that a lot of people think it's a very kind of utopian thing and that it's kind of out there and airy-fairy. And, you know, frankly, I thought that too when I first heard it. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought it was important to have somebody advocating for nonviolent conflict resolution, for ensuring that we had a high commitment to mediation, to restorative justice, actually sitting at the cabinet table and advocating for those things. It may not change ultimate decisions. Canada may still at some point decide to go to war, for instance, but at least at the cabinet table in that discussion there'll be somebody with the specific responsibility for seeking alternatives to taking that kind of action.
What we're trying to do is forever change the nature of debate and decision-making in cabinet towards a culture of peace in Canada and around the world. In Holland, in the UK, as I mentioned, in Germany, in Denmark, and in Holland are four particular countries. Did I say Italy? And Spain. Mm-hmm. Spain is actually very active.
Mm-hmm. And Africa.
The Global Alliance has membership from 5 continents and active membership from each of those. And Africa is now proposing to hold the next summit for Departments of Peace in 2011. And they've created the Africa Alliance for Peace, which has become quite an important body. And a lot of the work that they're doing has to do with, there's a lot of violence in Africa around elections. And so there's a real focus on addressing this problem. And this is a problem around peace building and nonviolence. So our people are working actively in this in a highly pragmatic way, because you want succession to work, legal succession to work in a democratic way. And it also is nation building and promotes peace building.
If I understand it right, then there is, like in the 5 different continents, there are people that are being trained like through peace building and conflict resolution to work within their country nationally, and also to go overseas into conflict areas to work overseas.
That is, thank you for asking that question. This is an integral part of our proposal and that of the American proposal and others. That is to say, in Canada we call it the Canadian Civilian Peace Service. This is an unarmed, professionally trained cadre of workers who are trained to enter into conflict zones either before conflict erupts into violence, or in the active phase of a war or conflict, to, first of all, to defend and protect civilians. This grows out of the various movements to do that kind of work, as happened in Guatemala and other countries. But so this is an outgrowth of that idea, and the idea is that these people who are trained as military officers are trained for several years, that they have the ability, they're fully certified professionals, and they can enter into conflict zones long before official diplomatic channels. And they attempt to both not only to protect people, but to bring the parties together to a conflict, to begin the process of conflict resolution and transformation.
It has a sort of a domestic application as well. So through restorative justice programs, also with a commitment to mediation and nonviolent resolution, peaceful resolution of conflict, you could use those skills and those people who are trained to do that work in domestic situations that arise. So where the Canadian Armed Forces has been deployed domestically, for instance, this would provide an alternative, another possibility for resolving those kinds of conflicts without resorting to the military.
Restorative justice is a particular aspect that interests me, and I see as being an integral part to the creation of a Department of Peace, inasmuch as it is an alternative way of doing justice, as a Department of Peace would be an alternative way of violence prevention and mediation. So the two aspects go together very well.
There's going to be an education component, I believe, in this bill.
Yes. Now, you know that education is a provincial responsibility, but the federal government, in this case through the Minister of Peace, could produce peace education materials for use in the schools at their option. And we are calling for a K through 12 program in peace education, as well as post-secondary peace and conflict studies, enhancing those. There are those programs that exist in some universities across Canada. We'd like to see that work enhanced to prepare people in careers and as teachers in this field. Now, there are a number of models out there that are really fine, and one of the best we've seen is actually in Costa Rica. Now, Costa Rica has mandated at all educational levels a compulsory program in peace education, and it's actually being conducted by an independent body, a non-governmental organization called B-Peace, B-E, Peace. The work of Marshall Rosenberg in nonviolent communication, which is a whole language of nonviolence, which sets out to achieve nonviolently those things that people seek to achieve in their lives. Most of the time, we shoot ourselves in the foot when we're trying to achieve something because we speak unconsciously in a manner that is violent or aggressive.